Are you tired of being left out in the cold when rental application after rental application that you submit ends up being denied? Today, we're going to share with you the 4 cornerstones that landlords want to see in applications and give you tips on how to complete and submit an application that has the very best chance of getting approved. So stay tuned. Hi everyone, it's John and welcome to this week's edition of Cozy, Charming, Crazy Real Estate, where we talk about everything real estate. Today we're going to talk about how to get your rental application approved. Now, if you've been submitting a number of applications, paying a lot in application fees, you're probably getting pretty frustrated. You may not understand why your application is either not being just approved on its own or it doesn't compete well against other applicants. So we're going to give you the landlord's perspective on how an application is analyzed and judged. Now, even though Cordon Real Estate is primarily in the business of helping buyers and sellers buy and sell estates, homes, and land, we do also offer leasing and property management services for our investor clients. So we are very familiar with the application review process. So we're going to look at it from that perspective and hope that it helps you submit a better application and get that application approved. So we're going to start by talking about the 4 cornerstones of a solid rental application. The first cornerstone is income and employment. Now, a landlord wants to see that you have the income that can cover the rent. And they're going to typically use a ratio. It could be 50%, it could be 40%, sometimes in some markets it's even 30%. But what that means is that ratio is they want to see that your rent and utilities together are no more than a certain percent of your total gross income. Gross meaning before taxes and everything are taken out. So some landlords, when they review an application, they're looking for an income that's maybe high enough that the rent and utilities are no more than 30%, could be 40%, could be 50%. If possible, ask the landlord before you submit an application, because you can't change your income overnight. You can't change your employment overnight. They are what they are, but you don't want to submit an application on a property when you know you're going to get shot down. It's a waste of everyone's time. If you're paying an application fee, it's a waste of an application. So but try to understand that if you can. But you do want to have solid employment. If you've been there a couple of years, that's great. That's what mortgage lenders are usually looking for. And actually, a lot of landlords look at rental applications in a very similar way to the way that mortgage lenders look at a mortgage application. So they do look at those ratios. They do look at employment. They want to make sure that you are not working a lot of part-time jobs that might go away tomorrow. So if you have good, steady employment history, that helps. That's a very, income and employment are two of the most solid cornerstones of a good application. Now, if you are on Section 8 HUD housing rental assistance, or if you are getting rental assistance through a charitable organization or a similar situation, you may not have to meet those ratios, but you should document that source of support so the landlord understands your situation. Second cornerstone is your credit record. Now, some landlords do go by credit score. Most of them are going to be pretty flexible on the score as long as the record of payments is good. So the credit score is based upon making steady payments, keeping your debt to limit ratio down. In other words, if you have a credit card with a $100 limit and you keep the balance up around 90%, $90 out of that 100, that's kind of a negative. They see that you are probably living at a high level of debt, and a lot of debt payments will be a negative in the eyes of the landlord. So you want to keep a credit record that shows that you're keeping your debt down. Those payments, if there are any large ones shown on a credit report, can hurt your application because the landlord might consider those in that income to expense ratio. If it's something that goes away every month, like a credit card that you pay off, no problem. But if you have that $5,000 a month Lamborghini payment and you're only making $6,000 a month gross income, that could be a problem. But the important thing out of a credit report is it shows that you are paying your bills every month. Not only do you have the ability to pay your bills because you've got good income, you've got good employment, but you're willing to pay your bills. That's one of the big things that landlords look at, your willingness to pay your bills. Number three, the third cornerstone is a good past rental history. Start with no evictions. Evictions do stay on your criminal or credit reports. Different landlords source reports on tenant applicants from different places. But normally they're able to get an eviction report, and an eviction will stay on your report anywhere 7 to 10 years. So best thing you can is never get evicted. Again, you can't change that overnight, but it's something to keep in mind. And you want also a good report from your last landlord. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second. Finally, criminal history. Have a clean record. Again, you can't change that overnight, but that is one of the cornerstones of a solid rental application is a clean criminal record. And it's not just for the person whose name goes on the lease. If you have an occupant that is going to come in, let's say a roommate that comes in, they're not going to be on the lease as a tenant, they're going to be on the lease as an occupant, so that their income, their employment might not be used. But in all leases, normally you are required to list everyone who's going to live there, no matter what age they are. But if they're 18 years and older, they're probably going to have reports run on them. The landlord might require a credit report, a criminal and eviction report. And when they look at those, they're going to say, well, wait a minute, I'm going to judge that occupant. You may not be responsible for the lease, but he is going to be living there. Therefore, I'm going to judge him within the context of that total application. So if you're going to have a roommate and you have a clean criminal record, clean eviction record, put the same standard on any roommates you might have. Make sure that they also have clean records. So those are the four cornerstones. Now, how can we submit an application so that it gets looked at? Okay, first thing is always submit an application clearly. Now, a lot of landlords, like myself, we have gone to using an online system from a third party. When you see one of our vacancies advertised, it's going to provide a link that sends you to a system where you actually pay the fee to draw the reports. You type in all the application information. So it's going to be very clear. But when you do that, to the extent that you can, please use proper English so that it's understandable. Do not use any slang. Of course, do not use any profanity in any way. But try to write clearly, succinctly. Don't use a lot of extra words. Just get to the point of what you're trying to say when you fill in the blanks. Fill out your application completely. Do not leave any blanks empty. The landlord might think that you're hiding something, but mostly they're going to put your application at the bottom of the file because they don't have enough information to process that application. So you don't want to be put on the bottom of the stack because you left something out, and the landlord will get around to sending you an email or calling you to request that information when they get around to it, because they may go to the next application, it's totally filled out, and now you're competing against that application. The landlord might just say, well, I have a perfect application here, I'm not even going to call that other guy. So fill it out completely, leave no sections blank. Now, when you do fill out an application by hand, it's very important that you use block letters. Do not use cursive until you're signing your name or initialing something. But when you write words, write them with block letters. Do not use a thin point pen. Use a medium or thicker point pen, because the landlord is very likely to scan your application to put it on their computer for storage. A lot of people are trying to go to paperless offices, so they're probably going to scan it. They might send it off to somebody else to review. In our business, I know when we receive applications that are handwritten, we don't much anymore, but when we do, we typically scan them and we send the entire package encrypted to our owners, and many of them make the final decisions, well, on whether or not to approve an application. Well, they can't approve it if they can't read it. So you want to understand that you want to make it legible, and you want to have it in a handwriting with the proper thickness of pen that it's very easy to copy. You get a good copy when you just run it through the copy machine or scanner. It's very clear. Do not offer past credit reports unless you're asked. Most landlords are going to draw a new report because and this is a situation very similar to mortgage lenders. You might have done something yesterday that totally messed up your credit. And so their fear, the landlord's fear, is that you might have had a great credit report a month ago, but yesterday something happened. So they want to draw their own reports, and it's just a waste of time to submit a credit report that you've done that might be more than 24 hours old, especially. So most landlords are going to want to draw their own. So when you're talking, or when you're submitting income information, you want to provide proof of income and a specific person that can verify your employment, therefore your income. Now, what employers can provide to landlords can be limited based on state or federal law. In the old days, you used to be able to talk to employers and they'd say, oh, he's a good guy, he's a great worker, shows up every day for work early, da 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 da. Well, over the years, all those things have kind of gone out the window. For the most part, all an employer can verify is, yes, you work there. They might be able to verify when you started. They might be able to verify your title. And if you offer an income as a landlord, you offer the employment income number and you say, hey, does he make 80,000 a year? Sometimes they can say yes or no, they make at least that much. It may depend upon where you're located, but the amount of information an employer can provide a landlord is pretty limited. So you want to provide as much as you can to the landlord directly. But for proving income, if you have pay statements or pay stubs, that's great. They want to go usually back about 30 to 60 days worth of pay stubs. If you are self-employed, a contractor or a freelancer of some kind, the landlord is going to want to look at your income probably over the last 24 months. So the best way of doing that is by providing the front page of your 1040 income tax return, just the front page, because the AGI number at the bottom of the first page is usually the number that they're going to go off of. And so if you do not have pay stubs, you may want to provide those tax returns. In some instances, landlords will accept, if you have a business bank account, bank statements of that business banking account showing that you do have surplus cash that you pull out every month for your salary or personal expenses. So in some cases, you can use bank statements. Ask the landlord before you turn them in, though. If you are Section 8 or receiving support from a government or non-government agency, you want to provide with your application some kind of documentation of that. Now, if you're Section 8 HUD, you might want to show your current voucher. It may not be valid in the same city or county that where you are applying. It might be having to be transferred from another county or another city. That is usually going to be fine, but you want something from the housing office saying that you are currently under the program. If you are receiving something, assistance from a charitable organization, you want a letter from them stating, yes, so-and-so has applied and is currently covered by us. If you have any questions about it, you can call me at this number. Someone who is authorized to speak for that organization. You also want to, whenever possible, have a good relation with your past landlord and ask them for a letter. I don't do those very often anymore. People don't ask for them very often. Sometimes when I have a good tenant who's moving out of town, I know they're going into another rental situation, I do offer a letter that basically says, yeah, thanks for being such a great tenant. Thanks for paying the rent on time. Thanks for leaving the place in such great condition that we hardly had to do anything to it to prepare it for the next tenant. If you can get one of those types of letters from your former landlord, include it with your application. Now, there's a couple things you might want to stay away from, and there's a couple things you might want to feature in a letter directly from you to the landlord that explains why you want to live in the rental where you are applying. Now, do not say, hey, it's a great place. I love the pool. I just love the layout. They already know that, or you wouldn't be applying. You're wasting their time. But you might want to say, one of the reasons that I want to rent here is because it's such a close walk, definitely closer than where I live now, a closer walk to my child's school, or it might be very much closer to commuting to work, so it may be closer to work. If you have something like that, a solid reason why you want to be there that has nothing to do with, oh, it's a great place, like I said, they already know that. You want to go ahead and explain that perhaps in a nice letter. Things to stay away from in that letter: do not provide pictures of your current apartment or house saying, look at this place, look at how I keep my home. Doesn't this look beautiful? I'll keep my home really nice when I move into your place. That's often used as a trick with some landlords. It's either a place where the applicant does not live, or they cleaned it up for one day for the pictures, but it's not really how they live. So it's better, you don't really need to do that. It's not normally a criteria that the landlord is looking for, and it can just muddy the water a little bit. Now, one other thing to stay away from, and this does come up every now and then, and that is saying that you are willing to pay cash, either for the initial move-in or on a month-to-month basis. Now, there are strict laws governing when people can accept cash, because as mortgage lenders know, when someone comes into a real estate deal, let's say when they're purchasing and they want to put cash down, it's often a sign that there's something wrong. There's money laundering. In the sign of a rental, it might be that the tenant is participating in a business that is possibly illegal. Therefore, they're either laundering money or they have a lot of income that's coming in that isn't taxed. It's not claimed on tax returns. Therefore, it's kind of muddy money. and you don't want muddy money in your coming in through the rental process. So most landlords do not accept cash. We do not accept cash. I've worked with owners that used to, and none of them do anymore. So I wouldn't even offer that. That creates kind of a stigmatism with it. So those are the tips for submitting a good application. Just to recap, when you fill out your application, if you're doing it by hand, use nice block letters, use the best possible English, the most succinct, shortest sentences that you can, and use a pen that writes nice thick lines so that as the application is copied, it copies or scans easily well. It's very readable. And then focus on supporting every claim that you make in your application. If you say you work at ABC company and you make so much money, then do provide those pay stubs going back at least 3 or 4 pay periods. If you're self-employed, you want either your tax returns, or if the landlord sends pay or bank statements will do, then use those. If you are on any kind of assistance, make sure in your application you include proof of availability of that assistance, whether it's a government agency or a private agency. You want either a letter, or if you're Section 8, a copy of your current voucher is very helpful. And remember, if you do have a reason for wanting to live there, other than it's a great place, a little note explaining why might help. But also remember the 4 cornerstones. You want to make sure that you do not apply for a place that you don't have the income to rent. You want to make sure that if your credit is not so good today, start working on it today. Talk to someone who is qualified to review your credit profile with you and give you specific actions you can take to include your credit profile. Your past rental history, if you do have evictions or you didn't have a good relationship with your past landlord, own up to that, and just realize that that's going to take a while to go away. Same thing with criminal history. After a while, criminal history does go off your reports. However, if you review your reports and you see something on there that isn't right or should have been taken off, challenge that with the reporting agency, whether it's credit or elsewise, and get it off your report. But again, those are some of those things you can't do anything about. You can just wait them out. Well, I hope this has been interesting. If you have any questions specific of landlord's perspective on how to get your rental application approved, please leave a comment, ask a question below. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you will hit like. And of course, please subscribe and join us next week on the next cozy, charming, crazy real estate. Take care.